We're getting into the start of July and temperatures are starting to soar. We're getting up over 100 degrees every day, so I thought while the garden's at its peak and just about to shut down part of the way, I may as well give a little garden tour. I guess the best place to start would be by the entrance. I've got a crepe myrtle that I still need to get into the ground. It's got some little tiny pollinators on it. It's not doing too bad. It definitely needs planted though. It's getting too hot for it to be in a pot. I'm sure the roots are getting bound. Coming into the garden, we've got a little pepper patch. 6 or so pepper plants with some cilantro that's bolted down underneath. Most of the peppers are starting to get blossom end rot. I'm guessing it's due to the heat, but this ends up popping up on almost every pepper that I get on these plants, so I think that they're about to stop producing through the heat of the summer. I've got cucumbers on all the fence posts, and pollination's starting to go out the window. It's getting too hot for these things to pollinate properly, so we're getting weird fruits like this, but they still taste all right. This bed had a bunch of different stuff in it, a few types of kale and some lettuce, but all that's left is my red auroch, and it's pretty sparse. The bed's not very full, but at least that gives some room to put in some other transplants as the season goes on. I've got a pot full to the brim with mint, and it's all starting to go to seed. I need to cut these tops off before I end up with mint seed all over. We got another pepper. We got some more cilantro. Behind me, I've got all these tomatoes. I'm in the process of putting in a string trellis. It's just so hot that it's hard to get much done at a time. I got a pot full of sage here and a little bit of purple basil that's starting to turn green. I don't know what's going on there, but it'll still eat the same. I got sage all the way around the edge of this raised bed, and I've got some more purple basil that's turning green planted throughout. I've got a couple of peppers. They're really getting choked out by the basil. I'm thinking I need to give the basil a haircut because this is clearly trying to sprawl out between them. I got a Thai hot pepper plant here, or bird's eye chili. It's got lots of peppers on it still. I'm thinking it's going to be one of the most productive summertime peppers. I've got some Armenian cucumber trying to come in. I think this is all Armenian cucumber. I might have some cantaloupes in here. I'm not really sure. I got one crazy sprawling cucumber coming off of this post here. Blueberries are loaded up with fruit, but it's so hot a lot of them are starting to abort. We had tons, but once the heat kicked in, a lot of them just fell right off. Here's a nice looking zinnia. It's about 3 feet tall. I've got lots of zinnias down in here. Some of these larger blueberry plants are still holding on to their fruit, but the smaller ones down the line aren't doing so good. These are completely barren, but all but one of them are still living, so maybe next year we'll get some berries off of them. Down here I've got moonflowers sprawling across the end of the garden fence, and I think that any day now they're gonna kick the bucket. It's getting so hot that they're not doing so great. I was hoping that some of these flowers would mature and I could get my own seed for next year, but it's looking like it's going to be too hot for that. I don't think that they're going to open up in time. Got lots of wildflowers planted through here. I've got sweet potato vine in between. These sweet potato vines are really sprawling. I think if I could give them more water, more consistent water, and some mulch, they'd be doing better. Same story down here. More sweet potatoes, more cucumbers. Actually got some weeds through here. I didn't get any mulch down, and so the weeds are a little bit crazy compared to the rest of the garden. Haven't had to do a lot of weeding. My corn inside the garden didn't do so great this year. This bed ended up with corn earworms so bad that we got maybe 2 ears out of the whole bed that were edible. And this bed, since I assumed that it was just as bad, it's made ears, and they've been eaten on by earworms, but probably half of the ear is still good. This ear is not looking so hot. You can see the corn earworm damage. You can see where he introduced some mold in here, so you wouldn't want to eat this ear, but if I would have got to it maybe a week or two ago, this looks like really nice corn down in the ear. Here's my sweet potato beds. Got 2 raised beds here, and just a month ago, these were pretty much barren. I planted these out with new slips, and they really took off in this heat. I'm thinking sweet potatoes are going to be one of my big hot season crops that I grow. Of course, I won't get a harvest off of them until the fall or maybe early winter, but we can eat the greens. These young growth tips would be really nice stir-fried, as long as I can keep them watered well enough that they don't bitter up on me. My cattle panel trellises have been doing really well. I planted them a little too late to get any yield off of them, I think. If I can keep these alive through the summer, I think I should get a really good yield off of them, other than this one panel that I need to replant with something, because they're taking off well. They just didn't get planted early enough to yield. This heat's gonna keep them from setting many beans. Looks nice though. Some of the vines are 3-4 feet tall. Believe it or not, this is just 2 tomato plants. I've just let them bush out instead of trellising them or pruning them or anything, and these are honestly the most vigorous looking tomato plants that I have in the garden. Got some okra in with this golden amaranth. The amaranth is starting to set seed, but it's looking really pitiful. I think that the heat's just too much even for amaranth here. At least this variety. I might get enough seed out of this to plant for next year though. But the main benefit to it is it's kept a lot of the bugs off of my okra here. This okra is starting to set some pods. Got some flowers. Looks like I've got some aphids or something. But I think that's a pretty good interplanting. Amaranth and okra. Seems like the amaranth takes the brunt of the pest damage. I've got a lone Tahitian melon squash plant here. This thing's doing really well to be planted as late as it was. I got one good fruit right here. It looks like this tendril is just about dried. I think I can pick this here pretty soon. And it's set one more pumpkin over here. It's even smaller as of yet, but it's growing. It looks like it'll actually have time to mature. And if not, we can eat it like a summer squash. We've got some Malabar spinach that's been growing like crazy on the fence here. And it's starting to set some flowers. These will turn into berries, nice purple berries. They're kind of tasteless, the berries, but they're nice to add some color to a dish. And these leaves are really nice as a spinach substitute. They start to get bitter when they're bigger in this heat, but the younger leaves, say this size or a little bit bigger, maybe like these, they're nice in a salad. This bed has some wildflowers that prefer shade, and here they're really not getting a lot of shade. They're really suffering through it. I don't think that they're gonna do much. We've got a few flowers on this one here, but it's not really doing a whole lot. Come here, Bubba. Hi, Grayson. I'll give you some love. Good boy. Crazy. Grayson knows he's not allowed in the garden. He likes to dig too many holes. Back behind these shade-loving wildflowers, I have some slicing cucumbers. I've got a few set right now. They're not too bad. I prefer the pickling ones, but these are growing a little later into the season and growing a little bit bigger of cucumbers, so I won't complain about them. Got a little bit of dill left. Some of it's starting to go to flower. Even with it starting to go to seed, it still makes some really good pickles. I don't have any issue with it. And I've got a couple of pots of tomatoes for backup. As my other tomatoes die or stop producing in the heat, I'm thinking I might transplant these into the ground, or if that doesn't work out, I can always put them in a pot, bring them inside, keep them under a light till the heat dies down a little. Coming back around to the other side of the peppers and tomatoes. These guys aren't doing too bad. They get a little wilty in the heat, but right now they're looking all right. The tomatoes in this row haven't really produced much in this center row. I need to get these carrots out and replace them with some of those potted tomatoes. I got one really nice tomato on this plant, but that's the first one that's going to come out of this center row. Got some more peppers, a couple of eggplants. Got a ghost pepper plant that was loaded up, and then all of a sudden the bugs started eating on it. I got two left on the plant that might make it to maturity. I got one here on the other side that doesn't seem like it's going to grow quick enough to beat the heat. We'll see though. I got 3 jalapenos, probably too close together here, considering they never did produce anything, but they look nice here. This arch trellis turned out better than I would have expected, but it never did really produce many pole beans on this right hand side. But as for picking beans over my head, like I mentioned in a previous video, if I can keep the ants off of me, I do get to pick some beans up here. I've really been enjoying these yard-long beans. I've been picking them when they're about 18 inches long, and they've been going great with okra and squash sauteed up just till they start to get tender. I got a bunch of lettuce that's coming over from the winter that's going to seed. I need to collect this seed and set it back for this fall or early spring. I've got some beets that never did really produce any actual beets. There's plenty of beet leaves, but they never got big, and the bulbs are tiny. This would still be a tasty little beet, but there's not much to it. Got another little okra patch here. It's not producing anything yet, but it's got flowers coming on. We've got some patty pan squash right here. It's produced a squash or two already, but I think that this heat's gonna make all of the pollen unviable. It's got some flowers open down in the middle, but there's not a whole lot of female flowers. And the ones that have popped up, other than a couple, don't seem to have been viable. Forgot to mention down here, I've got some yellow squash over on this side of the garden as well. And I neglected to mention that I have beans and okra and a few collards and some more beans down here, but none of them are doing too great. I planted them a little too late, other than the collards, and the collards are getting eaten bad by something. I'm not sure what, maybe slugs. Got some okra here that's actually starting to produce pretty well. I'm getting a pod every couple of days off of them. And some green beans, little bush beans that are still producing. These have got some good beans on them that I need to pick today. Got more beans here that aren't producing yet. And another section of beans here that haven't produced anything. Got some okra that needs picked today. This little patch might be my best yet. These plants are making good sized pods already. And they're actually getting to where they'll produce more than one at a time. I think all three of these have 2 pods on them. More okra there. It's just starting to open some flowers, so we should be eating off of it soon. Some green beans that are in pretty rough shape. They made some flowers a little while back and they never did make anything, so I'm thinking the full sun is way too much for them. We have some onions that I've mostly picked through. They're starting to flop over, so it's time to get the rest of these out of the ground here soon. And a little bit of Swiss chard. This stuff's way too bitter to eat with this heat, but it looks kind of nice. And I can always feed it to some plants or give it to the hens. That's pretty much it for inside the garden, but I got plenty more to show. Out in the open, we've got lots to go through. I'd say I really have 3 different garden plots, but this fenced in area is the biggest. I think I have about 2,000 square feet that I'm working with here. We've got the garden just to our right, and we've got the melon pit patch to the left. I've still got some leaves that I'm spreading out over these hills, but they're starting to drooping in the daytime heat. I've got some crookneck squash that are still trying to produce, but they're having a really tough time. We've got gray zucchini here. I've got a couple of female flowers here that'll hopefully get pollinated, but you never know with this heat. It's just way too hot for most stuff to do a whole lot. I've got some patty pan mixed in with them, and they're still producing. The patty pan seem to be the best producer whenever it comes to the heat. I think next year I'm going to grow a lot more of them. This hill is all green zucchini. I think Ford Hook. They're really vigorous. They just aren't really producing. I've got some golden zucchini in this hill. There's a patty pan over here, and it's starting to vine out like crazy. And it's kind of stopped producing. I think it's putting all of its energy into making new vines. Now a row over from the zucchini that's all along there, or the summer squash, I've got my moringa pumpkin, and it's really suffering from this heat. It doesn't look like it right now, but in the middle of the day, it's just wilted to the point that it makes you think it might not make it. This pumpkin's starting to get some sunburn, I guess you might call it. This spot right here where it's so light is kind of worrying me. And the tendrils are mostly dried up past the fruit. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest him. I got another pumpkin down here past that. It's tendril. It's just about dry, if you can see down in there. It's not getting sun scalded just yet, but here soon that's going to have to be harvested. We've got a third pumpkin further up. Its tendril is just about withered up too, so I'm thinking all 3 of these will get harvested pretty soon. Here I've got the Jack B. Little. We got some small fruits. Tendrils are still going strong on a lot of these, but I've harvested about 10 already. I think next year I'm definitely going to grow some more Jack B. Little because they're a nice looking little pumpkin and they're supposed to taste great. Then I got my Cushaw. green striped cushaw. Got a similar situation going on here. This guy's getting some sun scald. But I think that this is my biggest pumpkin of the year. You can see his tendril is withered. He's ready to get picked. I'm actually going to go ahead and pick him once the video's done with. So I've got 4 fruits on here. These 3 are a little smaller, but all but 1 are pretty much ready to be picked off of this. I might give it another few days or to the end of the week. But Cushaw's another winner. I'll definitely plant more of it next year. It's a really short season variety. So just in 90-95 days, we've already got 4 nearly mature pumpkins that are really good sized. If we look over to this side, this last row in the melon pit patch is all melons. These are doing surprisingly well in this heat. They're still setting some fruits, but none of them are real big, and a lot of them are poorly pollinated. But just the fact that they still have the energy to make fruits in this heat is impressive to me. This is a lemon drop. This is the only watermelon that I've harvested so far. It's a really short season watermelon, and it's really sweet. Good all the way out to the rind. I mean, it's got a paper thin rind. Sometimes they set green fruit. I don't know what causes that, but it's kind of interesting. Got another watermelon plant here. Really weird set fruit. I don't know what's going on there, but that's not very normal. But the fruit, it's set hard, so maybe we'll just get a strange shaped watermelon out of it. And we got a cantaloupe plant here. I think that this is a smaller variety. We'll see if that gets to maturity. I think it'll be a nice cantaloupe though. Grayson! 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 Come here. Whoa! He's hunting grasshoppers for me. Come here, buddy. Good job. Get those grasshoppers. That's a good boy. He's a pretty good little cat. Come here, buddy. He just wants to sit and purr. Over here, I have my pole trellis for my pole beans. These are actually starting to produce again in this heat, which is really surprising to me. I'm getting some good sized beans off of them. These are all rattlesnake pole beans. I planted these in a previous video and made the whole trellis on video. You can always check that out on the channel if you want to see what's going on here. Right next to my pole trellis, I've got what was supposed to be a little Three Sisters mound. There was going to be beans in the middle, but that never panned out. Every time I planted more, they ended up dying. I don't know if they didn't like this compost I have or what's going on, but the aphids are attacking the corn. They're all over the leaves, and the cornier worms have eaten a lot of the silks and tassels and stuff. Definitely not a real success. Same story here. Beans never came up. I actually weed eated down the pumpkins that were around it on accident. This guy got eaten on by a rabbit and fell over. The plants are decimated by the cornier worms. Not my favorite project to look at for this year, but you live and learn. I put some cantaloupes in here too, but they never took off either. I brought them in too late, I think. Corn's too tall and doesn't let them get enough light. These sunflowers, on the other hand, they're doing great. The bugs really like to gnaw on them. A lot of them have some damage, but are you gonna help me some more? Oh, you're hot, aren't you? You're panting. Good boy. But these sunflowers are doing pretty great, other than the mating grasshoppers that are getting on them. But these are just starting to open up. The majority of them are still closed up, but we're getting some really pretty flowers other than what's getting eaten up. Get him. Get him, good boy. Oh, scared him. Next year I want to plant a lot more of these sunflowers because these are really nice to look at. They don't take a whole lot of work. I don't have to water them half or a third as much as the rest of my garden. That's 2/3 of the garden space down. Got one field to go. And it is all the way over there. Other than the sad state of my shade cloth that I hung up, being so droopy due to these poles pulling so far over, this is actually my biggest success of the season. I like this patch even more than I like my pole trellis that I made. This is, I guess, sort of a Three Sisters patch. I planted what I was told is field corn or dent corn, but whenever we eat it green, it's just as nice as store-bought sweet corn. It made tons of ears. There's still some ears left that might be sweet, but a lot of them have gone starchy because we couldn't keep up with how many ears there were. I think next year I'm going to plant a couple of fields like this. I'm going to do things a little bit different by planting the corn staggered. I'll succession plant it so we don't have to eat so much at once. And I'll try to make sure that I get my beans in, or in this case black-eyed peas, in before the heat really kicks in, because we haven't got any black-eyed peas off of these yet. Although, it looks like I might have my first one here. Well, you saw that live. My first black-eyed pea out of the corn patch. That's a really sweet pea. The main thing that I'm thinking for next year is I might go sweet corn, or I might go one field of sweet corn and one field of grain corn. But I really need to treat the silks on these ears of corn with some sort of mineral oil or something. Between the corn earworms and the grasshoppers and the ants that you can see right here, a lot of these cobs weren't any good. They got infiltrated before I could get to them, a lot of them, but I'm really not convinced that this was grain corn, because there's some really nice ears in here. If it wasn't for all of the earworm damage and the hoppers getting after it, this would be good stuff. This is definitely starched up already. It's all clumpy rather than a liquid, but I think they'll still be good in a corn pudding or something. We got black-eyed peas mixed in with this corn, and it seems like some of them are bush beans, bush peas, whatever you would call that. Just a small plant that doesn't vine out. But then some of these are definitely pole beans, pole peas, because this guy here is standing at about 4 feet tall, and there's plenty of them in here that are like that. But I'm hoping that they'll grab onto the corn and each other, keep up off the ground, and maybe produce some peas. We had a chicken that passed on us. It's a really old hen. And that's all that this is fertilized with right here. I dug a hole and made a melon pit with it. Buried the chicken. And for not having any real fertilizer, isn't too bad here. It definitely could have made more of a yield. These are really tiny fruits compared to the rest of the fertilized Seminole pumpkins. This whole field just got maybe 5 pounds of 10, 10, 10. I can't remember exactly how much. This is what these Seminole pumpkins look like if they get fertilized. They get a lot bigger. These are starting to change color, but the tendrils are still nice and green, so we've got some time left on these. Hopefully these will be ready to harvest before the heat takes the plant out. I already mentioned what these are. We have Seminole pumpkins on this side, and down over here we have a far less productive Tahitian melon squash. These are supposed to be a lot like a butternut, but last a lot longer. I put in 3 plants and I got 3 pumpkins out of it. I don't know if I needed to start them earlier or if these just aren't super productive plants. I've got them sitting on cardboard just to make sure that I don't lose them. This one here is getting pretty close to ready to harvest. Its tendril is just about withered back, but it's still got a little time to go. The other 2 are still growing a little. I got 7 rows. These 3 rows have a Tahitian melon squash on the end, and these 3 rows have Seminole pumpkin. This in the middle, I put 2 vines so that I could cover both sides of the row, and it was supposed to be a triple treat pumpkin, but I ended up with something different. This is what I ended up with. The closest thing I can find online is 1 Too Many. That's the variety that looks the closest to this, and it was pretty productive for an early season pumpkin. I got 4 pumpkins, all 3, 4, 4.5 pounds, and they matured really early. As you can see, this one's nice and orange, and it's only July. I planted them at the end of March, maybe early April. If I can manage to keep some seeds that are viable from this, these 2 varieties will cross, the Tahitian melon squash and the Seminole. They're both Cucurbita machata, I think. This should be maybe a mixata or a peppo. I should be able to keep seeds from it and grow the same thing next year, which I'm really excited about. I wouldn't mind a whole field of these as long as they taste good. They look really nice. Even as a decoration, this would be well worth growing a bunch of. That's pretty well it. I hope you enjoyed. I know I did. I'll see you in the next one.